Welcome back to GridironNow.com. I'm going to hit up Frank Frangie with questions about this past SEC weekend. Frank, let's get right to it. You were very outspoken about LSU canceling its game with McNeese State. So tell me more about that.
You know, that got a lot of grief from some of the LSU folks about that. Here's the point. I have great respect for LSU. We have great respect for the SEC. But I don't think that kind of thing can happen. That's 2 years in a row now in the SEC it has happened. Last year, Florida-Idaho got canceled, and they never made it up. And I thought it affected the Gators throughout the season. This year, LSU, McNeese State happens. Does it get made up? I think it's going to affect LSU. Look, in college football, the fans who pay a lot of money, not just for the ticket, but booster contributions, get 7 home games. That's less than anything else. In the NFL, they get 10 home games. College basketball, 12 to 15 home games. NBA and baseball, way more. But in college football, you only get those 7 home games. I think the fans deserve that. I think the players deserve to play them. So, moving forward, there has to be a plan. There has to be a plan to not let this happen. I understand that the McNeese players put their uniforms on and rode over in a bus from Lake Charles, Louisiana, in their uniforms. Next time around, have them pack an overnight bag and a toothbrush. Have 60 rooms on hold just in case. I don't think it's responsible to allow a game to get canceled and not rescheduled. At Illinois, Kent State was supposed to play at Illinois on Friday night. Same thing happened. Lightning. They bust over. So you know what? They found a bunch of rooms. They checked back in. They got dressed the next morning. They played Illinois. They left and went back to Kent. I think the SEC has got to put plans in place to not allow a cancellation to happen and not get made up. They should have played it the next day, and moving forward, there's got to be a way to play the next day. I'm adamant about it. I respect LSU. I respect the SEC, but they've got to get better in that regard.
Well, of course, lots of things happened on the field. So, Frank, what were your thoughts on the Alabama and Auburn neutral site wins?
Yeah, you know what? Both teams won. They were different kind of wins. I'll start with Auburn. I was a little underwhelmed with Auburn. Now, in fairness, they played a good Louisville team. I think Louisville's the best opponent that anybody in the SEC played, Arizona State included. So they played a good Louisville team. I thought Jeremy Johnson was a little underwhelming. I thought at times he looked a little bit overmatched. He was nervous. So much has been made about this guy. Now all of a sudden he's supposed to be a great player and he's got to go play. I think Jeremy's going to be fine, but I was underwhelmed with Auburn offensively. They got a defensive score, and without that defensive score, you might not have won the game. I also thought they struggled a little bit defensively when Louisville went to the freshman quarterback. So I thought Auburn looked okay. I think they will be better as the season goes on. I was really impressed with Alabama, Amanda. I thought Derrick Henry, boy, what a man he is. Good game for him, all those yards, the 3 touchdowns. I think Alabama is going to be better maybe than anybody thought, and everybody thought they were going to be good. Jake Coker played very well as a starting quarterback. Ohio State's the #1 team in the nation. I think Alabama's going to be everybody's #2 team. So I know I picked Auburn to win the division, but right now I think Alabama's playing better.
Let's talk about the West. Who got your attention?
Boy, all of them, to tell you the truth. Think about the way the West played. Give Mississippi State credit. They played, a neutral site game, a real road game at Southern Miss. Now, that's pretty good. They were willing to go to Hattiesburg and play that game. And that's a rivalry game, at least to the Southern Miss guys. It might not be a rivalry to Mississippi State, but I promise you it's a rivalry to Southern Miss. It was a close game early. Mississippi State pulled away late. I applaud them for playing that game. Scott Strickland's willingness to play that game, Dan Mullen's willingness to play that game. So I applaud them. So I thought they looked good. Ole Miss scored 76 points. Boy, did they look good. Texas A&M played an Arizona State team. That was supposed to be sort of a pick'em game, and they laid it to the Sun Devils. And Arkansas, I told you about Arkansas. They were my sleeper team. Boy, they looked good as well. I think the entire West looked good. The only team that didn't is LSU because they didn't get to play. Boy, the West, everyone worried about the West being down because of the bowls. Don't worry about them anymore.
Well, let's flip the switch now. What about the East? Was Tennessee all that you expected them to be?
You know what? They really ran the ball. Hurd and Kamara, those 2 terrific backs, looked good. But they gave up some points, too. I did think Josh Dobbs played well. I told you last week I was worried about his accuracy a little bit. I thought Josh played very, very well. I thought offensively they looked good. They looked athletic offensively. But they gave up a lot of points. Tennessee's defense concerned me a little bit. I still like them to win the division, but they've got to play better defense.
Now, what about the Georgia Bulldogs? They were the popular pick in the East. Did you like what you saw from them?
Boy, they looked athletic, didn't they? Georgia really looked like an athletic football team. They ran the ball. You know they're going to run it. Well, how about that running combination? The combination, obviously Nick Chubb. I think he's the best back in America. Sony Michel, you know all about him. Wasn't it great to see Keith Marshall back on the field again? God, I thought it was great to see that after all he's gone through. That's 3 great running backs. Here's the concern. They only threw 11 passes. You can't win the SEC East, particularly when you've got to play Alabama and Auburn, by only throwing 11 passes. So we really didn't learn much about Grayson Lambert. Athletic, tough, very good team, very physical, very good defensively. They're going to run the ball. I still wonder if Georgia can throw the ball when they have to throw the football.
Well, let's zoom out for a second. Is there anyone in the league that did better than you expected them to?
You know, a handful of teams did, really, if you think about it. I thought Florida is the X factor. Florida is going to be great on defense. We talked about that last week. Interesting, they played the two quarterbacks. But I thought Florida is a team that maybe played a little better than I expected. Now, they probably played the worst opponent of any of the SEC teams, too, so you have to factor that in. And the other team's Arkansas. They didn't play better than I thought they would play, but they played pretty well. South Carolina, meanwhile, is a team that I think didn't play as well. Now, they played a very good North Carolina team. That's a team that didn't play as well. Arkansas and Florida sort of the X factors in the league.
You brought up the two quarterback situation in Gainesville. Do you think Jim McElwain is handling the quarterback situation the right way?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's interesting, isn't it, that he started Treon Harris in the game, wound up playing Will Greer too. Greer actually seemed like he played more, but Harris had more attempts. Here's what I think. I think it's very smart to play them both for a few games like he's doing to make sure they're both ready. Get them as many reps as you can, because probably over the course of the season you're going to need two guys. So I think playing Harris and Greer together for a game or two makes a lot of sense. Having said that, there's a caveat. I really think after game 2, which is this week against East Carolina, Mac's got to pick his quarterback. It looks like it's Will Greer. Greer looked like the better of the two players. At some point, your quarterback, it's got to be his team. He's got to get into a rhythm, and you need as many reps as you can get. So I like the idea of two guys for two games. I'd hate to see it go any further than that.
Well, we're heading into week 2 for the SEC, so what are keys to watch for this week?
Yeah, I tell you what's going to be an interesting week, isn't it? Of all the games, the game of the week this week is Oklahoma playing at Tennessee. I think that's the game everybody is going to have their eyes on. Outside of the league, Tennessee plays Oklahoma. Oklahoma's supposed to be a better team. If Tennessee is as legit as I think they are, they've got to play well against Oklahoma. So I think that is a huge game. In the league, LSU plays at Mississippi State. Remember, Mississippi State had got to play a game, so they've got a game under their belt. It'll be LSU's first game of the year on the road at Mississippi State. The two games to watch this week, in my opinion, Oklahoma at Tennessee, LSU playing at Mississippi State. What a good second week it's going to be.
It definitely will be. Well, that's a wrap for Ask Frank. For the best content on the net covering the SEC, just head to gridironnow.com. We'll see you next week.